Chapter 17. If we could stop to sing instead of everlastingly noting volume, this and P. Wait, vol, this and P, that we could have the material of sagas of the bathers in the sun, which may be neither intolerably hot nor too uncomfortably cold, and of the hermit who floats across the moon, of heroes and the hairy monsters of the sky. I should stand in public places and sing our data sagas of parades and explorations of and massacres in the sky, having a busy band of accompanists who set off fireworks and send up balloons and fire off explosives at regular intervals, extra geographic songs of boiling lakes and floating islands, extra sociologic meters that express the tramp of space armies upon interplanetary paths covered with little black pebbles, biologic epics of the clouds and mammoths and horses and antelopes that once upon a time fell from the sky upon the northern coast of Siberia. Song that interprets the perpendicular white streaks in the repeating mirages at Yogel, the rhythmic walruses of space that hang on by their tusks to the edge of Space Islands, sometimes making stars variable as they swing in cosmic undulations, so a round space island with its border of gleaming tusks, and we frighten children with the song of an ogre's head with a wide open mouth all around it. Fairylands of the little moon and the tiny civilizations in rocky cups that are sometimes drained to their slums by the wide mouth ogres. The maelstrom of everlasting catastrophe that overhangs Genoa, Italy, and twines its currents around a living island. The ground underneath quakes with the struggle, then the fall of blood, and the fall of blood. 3 days the fall of blood from the broken red brooks of the living island, whose mutilations are scenery. But after all, it may be better that we go back to report B.A. See volume 1849. Page 46, a stream of black objects crossing the sun, watched at Naples, May 11th, 1845, by Capocchi and other astronomers, things that may have been seeds. A great number of red points in the sky of Uragun, July 9th, 1853. Astro Reg 5-179, CL Prince of Uckfield, writes that upon June 11th, 1867, he saw objects crossing the field of his telescope. They were seeds, in his opinion. Birmingham Daily Post, May 31st, 1867. Mr. Bird, the astronomer, writes that about 11 a.m., May 30th, he saw unknown forms in the sky. In his telescope, which was focused upon them and upon the planet Venus, they appeared to be twice the size of Venus. They were far away, according to focus. Also, it may be accepted that they were far away because an occasional cloud passed between them and this Earth. They did not move like objects carried in the wind. All did not move in the same direction, and they moved at different speeds. All of them seemed to have hairy appendages, and in many cases a distinct tail followed the object and was highly luminous. Flashes that have been seen in the sky, and they're from a living island that wags his luminous peninsula. Hair-like substances that have fallen to this earth, a meadow has been shorn from a monster's mane. And my animation is the notion that it is better to think in tentative hysteria of pairs of vast things traveling like a North and South America through the sky, perhaps one biting the other with its Gulf of Mexico, than to go on thinking that all things that so move in the sky are seeds, whereas all things that swim in the sea are not sardines. In the Post, June 3rd, 1867, Mr. W. H. Wood writes that the objects were probably seeds. Post, June 5th, Mr. Bird says that the objects were not seeds. My intention was simply to describe what was seen, and the appearances was certainly that of meteors. He saves himself in the annals of extra geography, whether they were meteors or the ordinary acceptation, excuse me, is another. And the planet Venus and her veil that is dotted with blue fringed cupids in the astronomical register 7-138, a correspondent writes from Northampton that upon May 2nd, 1869, he was looking at Venus and saw a host of shining objects not uniform in size. He thinks that it is unlikely that so early in the spring could these objects be seeds. He watched them about an hour and 20 minutes. Many of the larger ones were fringed on one side, the fringe appearing somewhat bluish. Or that it is better even to sentimentalize than to go on stupidly thinking that all such things in the sky were seeds, whereas all things in the sea are not the economically adjusting little forms without which critics of underground traffic in New York probably could not express themselves. The planet Venus, she approaches this lordly earth, the blue fringed ecstasies that suffuse her skies. With the phenomenon of August 7th, 1869, I suspect that the phantom soldiers that have been seen in the sky may have been reflections from or mirages of things of beings that march in military formations in space. In Popular Astronomy 3-159, Professor Swift writes that Mattoon, Illinois, during the eclipse of the sun of August 7th, 1869, he had seen crossing the moon objects that he thought were seeds. They were seeds. Also, there happened to be seeds in the sky of Ottumwa, Iowa, here crossing the visible part of the sun 20 minutes before totality of the eclipse. Professor Hymes and Professor Zenemeyer saw objects that marched or that moved in straight parallel lines. In the journal Frank Institute 3-58214, it is said that some of these objects moved in one direction across the moon, and that others moved in another direction across another part of the moon, each division moving in parallel lines. If these things were seeds, also there happened to be seeds in the sky at Shelbyville, Kentucky. Here were seen by Professor Will Locke, Alvin Clark Jr., and George W. Dean, things that moved across the moon during the eclipse in parallel straight lines. Whatever these things may have been, I offer another datum indicating that the moon is nearby, that these objects probably were not, by coincidence, things in three widely separated skies, parallelness giving them identity in two of the observations, and, if seen without parallax, from places so far apart against the moon were close to the moon. The observation of such detail would be unlikely if they were near a satellite 240,000 miles away, unless, of course, they were mountain-sized. It may be that out from two floating islands of space, two processions had marched across the moon. Observatory 3-137, that at St. Paul's Junction, Iowa, 4 persons had seen without telescopes a shining object close to the sun and moon, apparently that which a telescope another person had seen another large object. Crescentically illumined, farther from the sun and moon in eclipse. See Nature 18-663 and Astro Reg 7-227. I have many data upon the fall of organic matter from the sky. Because of my familiarity with many records, it seems no more incredible that up in the seemingly unoccupied sky there should be hosts of living things than that the seeming blank of the ocean should swarm with life. I have many notes upon phosphorescence or electric condition of things that fall from the sky. For instance, the highly luminous stones of Dhurmsala, which were intensely cold. American Journal Science 2-28-270. It is said that, according to investigations by Professor Shepard, a luminous substance was seen falling slowly by Sparkman R. Scriven, a young man of 17, at his home in Charleston, South Carolina, November 16, 1857. It is said that the young man saw a fiery red ball the size and shape of an orange strike a fence, breaking and disappearing. Where this object had struck the fence was found a small bristling mass of black fibers. According to Professor Shepard, it was a confused aggregate of short clippings of the finest black hair, varying in length from 1/10 to 1/3 of an inch. Professor Shepard says that the substance was not organic. It seems to me that he said this only because of the coercions of his era. My reason for thinking is that he wrote that when he analyzed these hairs, they burned away, leaving grayish skeletons, and that they were composed in part of carbon and burned with an odor, most nearly bituminous. For further details of the report, that bituminous, yeah. For further details of the following circumstances, see Comptes Rendus 13-215 and Rept. BA 1854-302. February 17th, 1841, the fall at Genoa, Italy, of a red substance from the sky. Another fall upon the 18th, a slight quake at 5 p.m. February 18th, another quake 6 hours later. Fall of more of the red substance upon the 19th. Some of this substance was collected and analyzed by Mr. Canova, whatever, of Genoa. He says it was oily and red.